Welcome back to the 21st century. This is your captain's log, Star Date. I don't know it. Star Trek Discovery Pod, a sometimes funny, sometimes smart podcast covering all things new and classic Trek. I am your special counselor to the Captain 7, Myrriah Gossett. With me on the view screen, we have
Clyde Haynes, a thief, a spy, and a pirate walk into a bar. No, of the three of us, I call dibs on pirate. Dread Pirate Roberts, that is.
Clyde Haynes.
Clyde Haynes, and I'm Paul. I'm just a cook. Satachet.
Yes. Our hero, just a cook. Tonight, we are reviewing and discussing the last episode of the final season of Star Trek Picard, entitled The Last Generation, written and directed by showrunner Terry Matalas. But just a few reminders. Paul, can you remind folks how they can share this podcast, where they can find it, and all that good stuff?
I can definitely do that. I'm supposed to remind the listeners to subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. All links are at StarTrekPod.co. And if you love this content, which I hope you do, which we hope you do, for just $2. You could help support us on Patreon at patreon.com/StarTrekPod.
Indeed. And Clyde, how should people engage with us in the chat this evening?
Nice. I like that. All right.
ASL, sign language. Just turn your cameras on and let us know you want to talk to us. Now, type capital P, capital O, capital D, capital pod in the chat, and we'll take a look at your comment, your question, your critique. And when we get to that special time in the episode, we're going to ask you what your overall thoughts are. We're going to tell you what ours are. So we just want you to type capital H, capital F, capital HF in the chat, and we'll take a look at what you think about tonight's episode.
Indeed. So again, spoiler alerts for all things Picard, but also this week we got a treat in the feed, and I thought we would talk about it before we jumped into talking about this incredible finale, which is a preview for the next season of Strange New Worlds. Pew, 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 pew. What did y'all think of the trailer?
I thought there was a lot coming at me at one time, which I thought was fantastic. My biggest aha moment that was jarring and confusing was Ona was number one.
Una
and
rocking it out.
Well, just because when we last left, there was all of this intrigue and mystery, and then they seem to just give that away.
We kind of know she has to come back because of the rest of the timeline that we're aware of. So it's we know she eventually comes back, right? So it's we will hopefully see how it shakes down, though.
Yeah, I was like, oh, well, that took all the intrigue away. I've been looking forward to that for a while now, and I'm sure I'll enjoy it. But I was just like, oh, you couldn't at least try and fake me out a little bit. Other than that, I thought it was fantastic. And
yeah.
And I gotta remember their names now.
Spock.
No, the chief of security getting flustered.
Chief security.
Khan,
yes.
Yeah.
I thought that was fascinating. I mean, we haven't really seen, especially on Strange New Worlds, we see, Pike's a bit of a player, but we haven't really seen a kind of a meet cute in a while. So I'm kind of curious.
We shall see. Paul, thoughts?
Well, let's see. I didn't know there was a preview, so I'm literally watching it now.
Well, we can skip that, Paul. How
Yes.
are you? I guess I am just perpetually on the internet. I also posted it in our Slack, but I'll give mine while you're watching it.
Yeah.
I saw it in the Slack, Myrriah. Thanks for posting that, and I watched it about 3 times. So I was like, oh, yes.
They also played it, if you watched it, at least on mine, before the episode. Anyway, but I thought it was fun that there was a Postal Service song in there. I was like, oh, this must be what it was like to I don't know, hear music from your childhood in Star Trek when you're watching it as an adult. Do you know what I mean? Because they always kind of pay homage to music of a very particular era. And so I was like, oh my God, am I finally old enough that my music is in Star Trek? I had kind of one of those moments watching this trailer.
Well, you'll really get it when your music that you grew up with goes to the oldie station.
Oh, it's already there.
Wow.
But it's going to be super fun. But yeah, I think it looks great. I love the humor. I'm ready for some kitschiness. I'm excited for Ensign Uhura and to see her adventures on the ship. To see number 1 come back. I'm ready for Pike to do all of his pikey things. I'm also really excited for our new head of engineering and to see what she brings. And I think it's going to be a grand old time. Yeah. And I think we'll probably, in light of Paul not getting to fully watch it and for us to do a full breakdown, and we have so much to talk about with Picard tonight, we should.
There seems to be a lot of Kirk there.
There's a lot of Kirk. There's a lot of Kirk happening. They're in a Roots, which is a very Canadian store, by the way, like a super Canadian store when he was trying to go around the revolving door. But we'll talk about that next week or in an upcoming week as we have a big break before that. June 15th is our next new Star Trek.
You say big break. I thought we were going to have a really big break. And I was like, oh, vacation time. And it was like June 15th, I guess.
Just kidding.
Oh, okay.
Like, you can tell that Clyde really likes our company, everyone.
I do. I do.
Thanks.
I'm just saying, look, you can love your job and also appreciate a vacation. I'm just saying.
Fair. That is a fair. I will not roast you anymore about that.
Okay. Well, I think it is time we finally dig into this episode. And I think you all know what time it is. It means it is time for some hot breaks. It is time for some hot breaks. Paul, what did you think in the shortest amount of time we can? Because I'm sure we're going to talk about all the things. Sure. First impressions.
I thought it was adequate. I think it was like everything it needed to be. And yeah, Clyde, just eat it. It's my hot break. I've said throughout the whole, season, like if it's going to be like, oh, because of the power of love, I'm going to be a little irritated. And, and it was like, it's like one of those things where like, oh, you've changed my life. I've known you for a week or two. And like, you've been a jerk for at least 2/3 of that. You changed my life and you've changed me forever. Like, okay, whatever. But I understand it has to be done. I'm not, like I know the forms, not that, but like, it does make me go and see how like, the TNG finale was so amazing in that regard. Like, it left on all these things that were, you just felt like, oh, and it was cute. It had a great adventure and blah, blah, blah. And you go like, this is actually an amazing exit for TNG. Anyway.
We'll talk more about it. I think we'll have some opposing views to that one. Paul, Clyde, what did you think?
So I thought the best thing about the episode was the only shot I got was a nice shot and a hologram. So that completely made. No, I'm just kidding. Hater. Jokes. No, I thought this was a great episode. In part because where it put me was the realization that I got what I ultimately wanted, which was another season of TNG, which is when you pull this back, that's kind of what I got, right? Mm-hmm. And the preparation for a new spinoff. And I was able to just sit back and kind of enjoy it for the nostalgia and the kind of the honoring of this incredible show. And if you're asking me, is this ultimately the best season of Picard? I'm going to tell you yes, right? For probably all of the wrong reasons. And I think that is because what I ultimately wanted was another season of TNG. And toward the end, I got that. But and yes, it was a bit, love heals all and love is everything. But you know what? I'm kind of a rom-com guy too. So while I noticed it didn't completely bother me. I kind of snickered and laughed a little, and then I said, I'll allow it.
I'll allow
it. So just kind of kept going. And I always said that I thought that Picard was going to die. And at the end, we got the entire group back. Like they made it through. Plus mean, literally, we got everybody back, like everybody but Shaw. So everybody who matters lived.
Ooh.
So, yeah, but I enjoyed it, Myrriah.
Yeah. I'm probably more on the side of well, maybe somewhere between y'all. I had a great time. I thought this was a fantastic series finale. And I thought, you know, I have my nits to pick, I think, but it's a lot of I think a lot of it has to do with just a disappointment in the like over the full series rather than this season. Does that make sense?
Sure,
Like
sure,
in
sure.
Yes.
in I felt that there was some things not quite honored that were probably set up in seasons 1 and 2, but I think if this was a standalone season of Picard and the others did not exist, then this was a very successful series finale.
That's how I looked at it, Myrriah. Just so you know, like
Yeah.
I pretty much ignored seasons 1 and 2, and I focused, at least this episode, I said I'm just focusing on this season as a standalone.
Yeah. And there's like, you know, and then my brain starts putting in things of like, oh, what if the other 2 seasons were actually building to what this ending was and all of the things. But yeah, so let's jump into what some of the hot breaks from the live chat. We've
There's
got
some good
Chibi
ones.
with it was fun, it was emotional, it was a little cheesy, and I loved it. Agreed. Again, I will say Worf, all the best lines and best scenes forever.
Sure.
Just like I crushed it all the way through.
I'll make it a threesome.
I
Do you even hear the words that are coming out of your mouth?
Yes. The sword being so heavy, swords are fun. Of course, swords are fun. Anyway, I loved it. I loved all things Worf. Hot Freak. I sobbed for most of the 60 minutes. I leaned right into all the good feelings. There's definitely, I appreciated the space that they gave some of the emotional moments. I feel like sometimes those can get breezed past, especially when you're trying to pack in things. Hot break. I was upset they mentioned Guinan, but right there, but didn't bring her on screen. I agree. I was like, Whoopi couldn't have come on set for 30 minutes, like for one side eye.
Less than that, yeah. Just
One
have her
side
standing there and then come back. Like she doesn't have to say anything.
Kieran says it was a well-deserved goodbye to the TNG crew while also laying the groundwork for a spin-off led by Captain Seven on the Enterprise G. Agreed. It felt very I would say a better version of Generations.
Oh damn.
I'm with you. I hate to say it, but
there was a lot of parallels, which is why I mostly bring that up.
It feels like they got a redo, to be honest with you.
Truly. Hot break, a great payoff from last week and wonderful send off for TNG crew. Yes. Yeah, I think we all feel pretty. Alana, let's see. Hot break, plot a bit thin in some spots, but emotional moments I pursued it beautifully. Yes. Also, yeah, I think the most important thing, Captain Seven. I am so excited. I am so excited. So
we can revisit that.
We'll revisit that.
Ooh, we can talk about that. I also want to call out the fact that we didn't see Laris again.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like at
so
all.
Of my, I mean, maybe we'll go through my nits to pick, which is like we never came back to Laris. Like, what happened to her? Are we just going to fully forget? I think that's my biggest nit to pick, is I felt like we did all of this character development for characters we never saw again in this finale, and it was like they just became means to the end for Picard to go on this journey to get back to his crew, which I could see, but it felt like some of that development was missing for me. Like, if this was the ending, I wish then the first 2 seasons were me watching Crusher and Jack on a ship, so that I had a better emotional connection to Jack and like I think a little bit more empathy for his situation. But yeah, and then Guinan not coming in when they say, I was like, this was the ultimate show don't tell. Like, you told me that, you could have just shown me that.
For sure.
For that, and then yeah, I think that was kind of my major ones there. So let's start from the top though, unless you had anything else, Clyde.
Well, I have a kind of an overarching question, right? Yeah. Like, again, I mentioned that I love this episode as part of this season, kind of in a bottle. But my question is,
wait, you know that song, If You Could Have Star Trek in a Bottle? If I could have Star Trek in a bottle.
But you got to understand, part of that though is because TNG that's my season, that's my series, right? Like we talk about this. You know, they've already said that I'm rocking a Geordie LaForge beard. I've got a figurine on my desk. Like this This is where I'm at.
I redid my office, y'all, because I got a bunch of new Voyager things.
Oh, look at that! Look at that.
So for me, that's why I'm so high on it. I'm curious though, and I've been asking around, if you didn't watch TNG, if that wasn't your thing, does this season even does it connect with you? Because it feels like it's built on 7 years of TV 30 years ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so someone I'll try to find it. It was someone IG messaged me, but I'm gonna have to scroll for a minute. Someone who listens to the show and was like, here it is. So Raymond, shouts to Raymond, who messaged me and says, "Hey, I wasn't sure, etc. Y'all asked about perspective of watching the season of Picard, not knowing past history." And he was like, "Well, I'm that guy. Here's some history on myself and Trek. As a teenager, he did see Voyager and fell in love and started watching Trek again after the 2009 movie. And then has since watched all the current shows besides Prodigy." So Raymond, definitely check out Prodigy. Disco is his favorite. But he never went back to watch any of the other older shows. So to answer the question, he's currently on episode 9 of Picard. This season in particular feels like I'm looking at a digital picture frame in a slideshow mode, but I fully understand what happened in each picture. Am I loving the ride? Oh, yeah. Do I have a desire to go back? No. He said, unless they upscale it to 4K, maybe. Overall, it's my favorite season of Picard because I can feel the nostalgia and the energy it brings. Plus, this crew is really lovely. So I thought that was like a really good insight of like, so shouts Raymond. Thanks for bringing that to us. Because, yeah, I think that has been hard to like navigate is like, we all have a nostalgia around these characters. Like, even if like, I know Voyager is my gal, but it's like, I watched enough episodes and popped in and out of TNG, and I understand the legacy of Picard as a captain, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, let's do it from the top.
From the top. So the intro, like I predicted,
that's right,
was the Enterprise D coming in. Thought that was a nice little swoop, and then we get a little Borg moment, which I'll say this was probably my other nip to pick. I felt like the Borg were too easily defeated. I don't, it just felt like,
well, they're dying.
I know they're dying, but it's like, I don't know. It was like, was that too, I kept expecting it to have to take longer to defeat it in a way. You know what I mean? But then I looked at the runtime and I was like, I think this is it. I think this ship exploding is it.
I think that to me was, it was almost, a little bit of a chef's kiss to stuff that had happened already, right? Mm-hmm. It was saying, hey, the fight was over a long time ago, and this was that last Hail Mary, that last ditch effort, and we're changing the way we fight. So it's less about trying to assimilate you and trying to turn you into drones, by sticking tubules in your neck, and more about, we've gone with a different tactic that we think is stronger, better, faster, more powerful. And so the defeating that was the big fight. But yeah, I did expect there to be, more drones, more shield, modifications. And
but
I will say, like, here's like, it looked like a super cube, right? Like, like a bunch of cubes just stacked on like Lego together.
It was massive. That scale was crazy.
Yeah,
because Jupiter is gigantic, so it's like to have something that can like stick out of Jupiter is insane.
Yeah. Hundo, and and I mean it's a testament to Janeway, right? Like this is the residual of the neurogenic blah blah virus, blah blah blah.
As Phil says, Janeway effed them up, and this was the last gasp.
There was the question I had, which was like they said that they hadn't seen the Borg for since
35 years.
10 years actually on the series, right? Like
10 years on the series, and then
it's 35 since Janeway.
Yes.
So I'm curious as to what like, did they just see like sick Borg hobbling around and the last sick Borg they saw was 10 years ago, or what? Like, so that was just one like kind of thing about it that I wasn't too sure about. But that said, like, I sort of feel that I didn't need a fight. I had we had a bit of the Beverly Crusher, like Womp Rat's, Death Star moment. and I felt like for me, it was more important to be with the characters, despite the fact power of love. Anyway,
Sorry, I keep jumping around. We're gonna keep jumping back and forth, y'all.
Sorry.
It was my fault. I started it. We start though with, I thought, a very lovely cameo moment, which is Walter Cohen playing Anton Chekhov, so essentially playing his son, which I thought was a very
grandson.
A very cool way to, one, pay honor to also to Anton, who played our Kelvin verse Chekhov.
I thought that was nice.
I thought it was very sweet.
What was interesting was like in the last episode, there was the USS Hikaru for Sulu. So I wonder if there are other, and that there was Kirk's body, so I wonder if there are other places in the series where they have like Spock or like Scotty or Uhura, like just hidden in some little Easter eggy type thing. And
I've been digging. I haven't seen them this far, but I did. Yeah, I enjoyed that. I've been trying to dig through all the Easter eggs as much as I can. It's pretty layered. And we're starting with our crew back on the Enterprise. They find Borg inside the Jupiter spot, and they sort of make their plan to stop this transmission. And Worf is going to join the threesome on the cube, which, as we said in our hot frakes, was a great moment. And then back on the Titan, we have Seven and Rafi, who have found a way to take back the ship. They used sort of transporter phasers, which we now have seen plenty of times are these portable transporters in Discovery. But apparently, I was doing some digging on the phaser thing, and apparently it did make an appearance in TNG in the Gambit episode. Apparently, a group of pirates uses phasers to beam up things just by firing at them.
Clyde's a pirate. But yeah, it was an episode where it started off with everyone thinking that someone killed Picard, and turns out that they were just being, beamed up, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we talk about nits to pick. I had to go back and rewatch the first couple scenes like 3 times.
There's a lot of exposition dump.
Well, what it is I remember like when we last saw Seven and Rafi, they're pinned down for the most part, right? Like they're like, hey, everybody else left the ship, we're here by ourselves. And the next thing I know, they're taking the bridge, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, well, did I miss it?
Well, something about the Titan was they had when Ro Laren came over, remember a bunch of the crew were beamed over to the other ship, so they're already running skeleton crew. So I think they just also had less assimilated crew to deal with than some of the other ships. And then you also just have Rafi and Seven because they're Rafi and Seven.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it. I was kind of like, oh, I feel like we skipped a step here because I was just like, maybe I missed the fighting through the corridors fight scene, or here's where we got weapons, or here's where we had time to invent this new technology because people were shooting at us last time I checked. I just kind of.
I mean, like the last time we left them, Rafi had shot the last person who had pinned them down. And then they went to wherever Jodie's museum is, loaded the Enterprise, and came back. So I feel like there's a certain amount of time, that could it does show how strong Space Dock is able to hold off like the Armada for
real.
Yeah,
truly.
I really thought Space Dock was going to get taken down a lot faster.
I know. I thought
every ship firing at it at the same time.
I wonder.
God, round one, sees it like debris. Like episode 10, open on debris.
Yeah. I do wonder if it was because they were there for Frontier Day, if all of the ships maybe didn't have torpedoes loaded and they were all just a bunch of phasers, perhaps. I don't know. But also I would hope that the planetary defense could hold up against something like that, especially after the Borg.
Sure. No, like I guess it made sense to have they talked about like the orbital platforms are destroyed. The only thing that's left is Space Dock.
Yeah.
And so they were dealing with other things, right? So I feel like it felt like there was time. So it didn't seem so weird that, that they all went away, went to a different planet, got a ship, came back, So, yeah.
So we eventually, in a series of like everyone sort of gets their shining moment, right, to kind of prove that they are like these legacy characters for a reason. We get Beverly really taking out all these weapons. Data gets his moment navigating through the ship. Geordi does a great job of managing the bridge and bringing everyone home and safe. And we have Deanna gets to reprise piloting the Enterprise, and she doesn't mess anything up, and she's able to find everybody. And, obviously our big face down is between Picard and the Borg Queen, where he's like, assimilate me, take me over my kid. And she's just like, oh, you're old news. Like, I'm ready for this new phase of the Borg where I don't need you. I just need this transmitter who is your kid.
Well, it's interesting to me because this is the second time she's had that speech, right? Like in what was it, Nemesis or First Contact, where she basically said, "Look, I got Data. I don't need you. You're basically a drone." I don't know why he keeps thinking that he's special. Like, I
mean, it's Picard though.
Yeah,
doesn't he always kind of think he's a little special?
I'm like, dude, she's replaced you twice, man. You're not that dude.
Yeah, I wanted to dig into Picard and Jack's relationship a bit, and how, like, Paul, you've been like, oh, it's the power of love, to break him out of the hive mind. But I do think it's an interesting, like, if we really step back and use the Borg as this like concept of, fascism or like totalitarianism, like this concept of like the baddies within our world, right?
Sure.
And how it is very easy when you are someone who is feeling alone, and I kept going back and forth of whether or not Jack truly feels like a great, I don't know, like being subject to this, right? Like, he is like good looking, he's charismatic, he's charming, he's got his daddy issues, but like overall, he doesn't seem like he's lived this like terrible life, which I think is what I might be missing in overall in this, is like this sense of loneliness of being different, and like, what does that mean? And you could see that a bit as like the queer allegory, right? Of like, oh, I'm repressing something that's different about myself, so I'm going to regress into this space that's accepting of who I am in some way. And so the metaphor gets a little mixed for me there of how these two things come together, because I was like, I just don't, it could just be like the Borg was like, I was their last hope, and so she put all power upon me to take over my body. Like, to me, that also makes sense in some ways.
Sure.
But I do like the explanation that it truly just takes someone to be like, what are you missing? I think you have gone down the wrong rabbit hole. Here's how you can find your way out, right?
Well,
and like a loving parent could make that happen.
Like, I would ask you this, like, throughout the whole series, what does Jack want?
That's a great question.
Exactly. And then, like, and is the answer what Picard gave him in the Borg hive mind? If the answer is no, then like we're making concessions for the plot. If the answer is yes, then then they did a good job.
And so I think I see it slightly differently. Granted, I think what we didn't get is enough understanding of Jack. Myrriah, to your earlier point, if we, in earlier seasons, if we had seen this kind of unfolding and headed toward this way and kind of understand, or really just some time to see him operate differently. Like, even if in those earlier vignettes when he was all piratey, if we had gotten some sense of his loneliness or his not fitting in, then it'd be at least a little easier to understand. My takeaway from this is kind of twofold. One is that, anytime I think about why people join, gangs or fraternities or any type of club, a lot of times because they're missing something, right? There's a relationship, there's this community, there's this sense of belonging, the sense of I'm accepted, right? Like, there's this big feeling of acceptance, which is something that I'll overshare a little bit, but means something to me. And when you don't have that and you're constantly searching for it, you become immediately kind of drawn into a place where it's like, oh, I can just be me. I don't have to, like, I don't have to feel weird. I don't have to feel different. Like, okay. And that's, I think, often how people get caught up in things that aren't always healthy, but it's because they feel accepted. And I think for whatever reason, what we're missing is Jack had been walking around feeling some sense of non-acceptance. Is it because his mother's been hiding him away and he hasn't been able to have a normal life like other people? Is it because he hasn't known his father? Like, there could be a bunch of stuff. And then what was kind of dumped on us in this episode was this overwhelming sense of kind of loneliness, and then this Borg hive, which I kind of get, right? Like, all of a sudden you're connected to everybody, and here you feel special, right? Like, he's Jack. And then again, it's a little loose, little light, but this idea of his father, his actual father, shows up and's going, hey, I'm here, I'm with you, I'm not leaving you. And he didn't quite say those words, which I felt like he should have, but like literally saying, I will never leave you, I'm with you, I've got you. Again, we could have used some more early on to really bring that home, but then he's like, it broke him. I get where they were going.
100%. And I think, they were trying to use, I think, that specifically that flashback scene where Picard is being sort of fatherly to all of those Starfleet members, right? And like giving them these words of wisdom and being like, oh, I never really needed a family. Starfleet was my family. And it was this like rejection. But I was like, what was Jack really seeking? I think out of trying to, in that moment, reach out to his father. Maybe I would have liked to have seen the motivation for him to have finally like made that move, or even just like a glimmer of what his and Beverly's life was like previously. Because I feel like Beverly seems to be a pretty decent mom at protecting her kid and like all, but we didn't see any of this childhood beyond like, oh, my mom used to take me to this garden every year. And I'm like, that sounds like a lovely thing to do, like, so right. I agree. Like, I wish I would have had some more Jack background development to make this moment feel even more impactful. Right.
Well, and to your point, Myrriah, like we do get that, like, we've seen Kirk young. We've seen Picard young. Like, there are a lot of times where we see people, and that gives us this insight into who and why they are the way they are, right? Like, Jack in high school, right, would have been interesting. Was he, what lunch table did he sit at? Was he a loner, right? Like, that may have filled in some of the blanks for us, I think.
I mean, all that I think really needed to happen for me is for Beverly to say, hey, you can hide, you can lie to everyone else, Jack, but like, I know you've always, I know you've always felt like you didn't fit in. I know you've always wanted to know your dad. He's here now. You should say something, and
because we all do already know and trust Beverly for a lot of us, right? And so I think that would have done a lot.
Exactly, and it would have helped the scene before, like, the not the scene before, the episode before, where here's Picard going, hey son, there are protocols. so you would see, here's what Jack really needs. Here Picard goes like, oh, he's gonna fail on that because of his damage with the Borg, and then he comes in and realizes, his failings, and like power of love. That's I believe that's the math that you do it. But like it wasn't done quite that way in this, and so like, I'm very sensitive to power of love. Like it just needs to, it needs to make me cry, or it fails. There's no version of like where it's like, oh, that's okay. Like, for all of it, This Is Us every episode is like something power of love, and and for the most part, it succeeds, right? It exceeds on pulling those tier things. So like,
I watch lots of movies where they get through to the power of love within an hour and 30 minutes, and like I am fully vested,
It can work.
Wait, hold on. I need a moment, because in the first time in about the last 5 years, Paul is the first Star Trek fan to admit to watching This Is Us, and that's a big deal for me.
I just read the Wikipedia. That's all. I'm
just saying. I'm saying I had a whole podcast about another show that no one ever listened to or saw. So this is a moment for me, Paul. I feel close to you all of a sudden. I'm like, should go grab a beer now that I know I've got, kindred spirit over here.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, I want to reiterate, like, I am totally down with human connection being the thing that saves you out of the darkest of places. Like
100%.
100%. Like
100%.
that is a very human thing to do. That is very tied to like so much of what I think makes Star Trek is the idea of like through family, through connection, like
It's
this
connection,
is
right?
what
Star Trek, like Star Trek is all about like, you are part of a greater thing.
Yes, exactly. So I can see all of that. All I'm saying is it would have been nice to have, instead of just staring at a red door every once in a while, to have had a flashback to tell me why this red door was significant. Like, that's my only nitpick.
But
these are mic just drop, Myrriah. That was
these are just nits. They're
nits. It's like
it's just nits.
That's the thing. It's like, listen, all right. So I'm also no surprise to anyone in this podcast. I'm a huge RuPaul's Drag Race fan, right? I talk about it. I
No
think
surprise.
And when you get down to the top 4, the top 3 of any competition series, right? These are the best of the best. We are watching a lot of the best right now. We're watching some of fan favorites, some great storytellers. You got to find things to talk about and to judge, right? Like that's what we're here to do as folks providing
we're picking at the nits.
Cultural criticisms and admirations for this thing. The other thing is like making anything is so hard as someone who makes stuff and like Paul 100%. And I, we try to make stuff all the time and it is very hard. So
well, I will say, I feel I feel a little weird looking at this incredible feat that they've pulled off and criticizing it a bit. But we're kind of here to talk about it right now. Right. I do want to caveat, if you're like, man, these guys, I don't, our podcast is never one of those that we watch it only to like talk trash about it. Right. The truth of the matter is we love it. Right. We've all watched it at least one time, and there's a chance that we might even watch it again at some point.
I've watched every episode of this series 2 to 3 times. Like,
right.
Ditto.
Like, same. So it's not, I want to make sure it's clear that we're not talking about this from a negative place, but we are unwinding and pulling back the layers of the story because we care.
And it's the finale, right? It's the final episode of this whole shebang. So it's like when we take a step back and count our coins here, what's kind of left.
Unpacking, baby. That's all we're doing.
Right.
Unpacking.
And to that point, Myrriah, who knows if we're going to see these characters again?
Yes.
Right.
I mean, and we'll talk about the after credits scene here and how they left that door open here in a second. I want other things that I found especially interesting in the connection of love was I actually really enjoyed that Tiana and Riker's connection. It was that moment when he took a second to like kind of almost pray to Deanna, like, and make that last little like moment and connection that she was like, oh, I can feel you. To me, that was another like power of love sort of moment where it's like, oh, this undying connection between these two characters. And in one of the ready rooms this season, they talked a lot about how both of those they play Troy and Riker like they've been in love, even when they weren't in love on the show, quote unquote, like in love, scripted in love on the show. Mm-hmm. They said that they often talked about how they always played those characters as if they still loved each other. And so it was like, even though in this particular series, they, have said like they've been having some issues dealing with their grief, it was like obvious that love was still really there. And I found that to be a very sweet moment. And their moments when they reconnected felt like some of the most authentic, like, reconnective moments to me, like the face scratch. Anyway, I thought there were some very sweet moments with them.
Yeah, no, like they've always been, like they've always been a special connection, right? Like even from the pilot, like she's half Beta Z, so she cannot read minds except for a few people, and Riker happens to be one of them, and because of their close connection, and it pairs well. Like if this is the last time we see Riker and Troy, it's
delightful.
It bookends Farpoint Station. It literally, it bookends that. So I think that's totally power of love, totally fine. Like, and Deanna had to do something.
Yeah.
Well, look, I agree with all the things you said, both of you. My only thing that kind of was like, what? Was as far as, the power of love goes, like you left her again for this dude. Like I thought at some point he'd stop leaving his wife for Jean-Luc, but he
I
keeps
think-
doing it.
I
But
mean-
Jean-Luc is his primary love.
Yeah, you can love more than one person, Clyde.
Sure, but I'm just saying, like, you just
I mean, this is a really big overarching like thing, but I think a lot about like the idea of our relationships that we have with people and like how much romantic relationship is placed above friendship in some ways. And I don't know if they were trying to take that stance, but I thought it was an interesting like space to
Well,
navigate.
I would also say this, like, would Riker be Riker if he didn't try to save Picard?
yes, he would be growth. It would be growth.
Would it?
Right?
Because like, is that what we want to see Riker grow to? Like, oh, here's my friend. I'm not gonna go into the fire to try to save him. I'm gonna go home with my wife.
Well, what would they be?
They could have maybe I mean, the other thing is like Riker knowing himself and knowing everyone on that ship. Is he really like my best place to help this whole group collective accomplish this mission on the ship, or is it on the ground using what I have?
Well, if he had said that, then I probably would not have had any thoughts whatsoever. And I agree with that. It's one of those things where I looked at it and go, when we opened this season, you were in trouble because he called and you came running.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And here you are in the final episode where you guys have made up. You're more in love than you've been in a long time. And he calls. And again, you go running.
Well,
like, are you learning?
I would push. I would push against that and to say, like, in the beginning, Riker goes to Picard because he needs an excuse to run away from Troy.
Fair.
He has a reason to stay with Troy, but now Picard needs him. So it's a different reason that he's leaving Troy. Like, he's leaving Troy before because like he can't deal with their problems. He's running away from their problems. Now, after they fixed everything, he's there, because of the man who he is. Now, I'm not a big Riker defender, but like I'm just saying, like here's how it's written and here's what it lays. Like,
I mean, just also looking at like the physicality of the people on that ship. If you're like, I need someone else to do some hand-to-hand combat, who else are you really taking down besides Worf and Riker with you onto a Borg cube? Because you left Rafi and Seven. You're more capable people on the other ship.
You're younger, more vibrant people. You got this old man who won't even use a gun. He won't even use his gun.
I liked what you said, Myrriah. If Riker had turned to her in this again, because I'm a rom-com guy, so if he had turned to her and said, "I want to be here with you, but the best way for me to protect you and our children is to go on that ship with them," then I would have been like, "Yo, that's the man right there."
But
that's the man right there.
Like, I feel like they don't need that to say that to each other. I think they just know that.
I mean, it looked like she was like, "Where the hell are you going?"
Well, I mean, they were all like, "We're all probably going to die, but we're going to go down swinging," Like.
Well, I will also say Beverly even got to the point where she was like, "Okay, kill my son." Like she got to that point.
For all of humanity.
That's right.
We're going to have to kill everyone.
I'm not gonna like with Riker goes like, I gotta go down to save this kid and humanity. Like there's no argument Troy can go that's gonna make her look good, right? There's just none, right? Mm-hmm. And the thing is, she's been in this situation tons of times. Everyone has been in this situation tons of times. It's always like it all comes down to Spock. The needs of needs of many
outweigh the needs of the few.
That's right.
Indeed. Let's see. I enjoyed Riker and Worf's combat moment against the few Borg drones that were left on the ship. I loved when Riker fully committed to dropping that sword and how heavy it was. I thought that was great. And then, kind of everything comes to a close. The ship explodes. Everyone gets back on the ship. Huzzah. I did really liked the Enterprise D and the Titan side by side. It was coming back to undiscovered country. It was very similar to that Excelsior and Enterprise A kind of moment, where in that one you have Kirk's voiceover sort of passing the baton to the next generation, and in this one you have Riker's. So I thought that was kind of cool. I will have to go back and double check, but we got no Picard Admiral's logs this season, right? I feel like almost all of the...
He's retired.
That's true. We did get Captain's log from Riker a few times. And in that voiceover, we find out the changelings are still an ongoing problem, but of course, our queen, Beverly Crusher, has scienced her way around.
Admiral, you know, like, I'm not gonna lie, this is, you know, there's a lot of Nepo baby-ishness happening.
Oh, yeah.
So much Nepo baby.
Indeed. I wanted to talk about the Tuvok and Seven moment.
Oh, sure.
And I saw a lot of people online were like, I wish this was Janeway. I was like, they've been very clear from the start that Janeway was not going to be coming into this series, which I get, but we get to see her in Prodigy, and Prodigy is excellent.
Yep.
But the other thing I think to me that felt important was Tuvok and Seven had a really incredible friendship on Voyager. So to me, this almost felt like the best way to do this in some ways, because they were two characters who often were the only ones who understood each other, being lost in the Delta Quadrant for so long. So I like that we got to see that Tuvok did not die from the changelings when they took over him. And then two, that we got to kind of really see what both of these characters got to become right after Voyager, and, you know, as the Voyager person I liked it.
Not after, right after, like 30 years after, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's also a little bit significant in the books, in the Titan books. Tuvok actually serves on the Titan. So like him being part of this whole dialogue, I felt like was really significant. And it's a throwback. Like that was the best way that they were able to show like the people who they took, they did not kill. Right. And so it kind of it gave us a little bit of insight into the changelings and what they're and who they are as an enemy, right? Like they're an enemy, but they're not an evil sociopathic enemy.
Well, it didn't say they did not kill everyone. They said they kept some people.
Yes. I thought they said they
Admiral Tuvok. That's who they kept. Admiral Tuvok.
I thought it said they kept them from like a number of ranks.
Yeah, because they were trying to get information or whatever.
As far as like not psychopaths or sociopaths, they were bent on destroying the Federation.
True.
And Starfleet.
But I do think that leaves some room. So, you know, kind of getting into the post here, we do get to our Seven is made captain moment, which was fantastic. We have Rafi as number one. And
I cannot let this lie. I cannot let this lie. No, this is, you know, like I love Seven, and I love what she's become. I've seen her go from like Borg drone to Ranger to first officer, and I think that is awesome. But like, you know, like even in Shaw's, you know, recommendation, which I love Shaw, he's, you know, by far the most in-depth character that we have. Nothing.
I liked Shaw this season. I was hoping they were going to find a way to resurrect Shaw, but I was.
But when he goes and says like, you know, she doesn't follow the rules, blah blah blah, but she's brave and loyal. I go, those are not the first things you want in a captain. Like, you know, you want those things, but those are not the first things you want in a captain. You don't want someone. You know, like we are past the era of pew 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 fire first, and like, you know, like it's. I'm sorry, like, you know, like Shaw was a good captain. You know, he took care of his ship. Like, you know, like a lot of people died because Seven was like going like, "Hey, these are my friends."
But I don't think Seven was directly responsible for a bunch of people's deaths.
Well, like by her actions, like they went into Nebula, people died. I'm not saying like it worked out in the end. It worked out for the best in the end. But like, you know, but like as far as like from Shaw's perspective, I need to protect my ship. I need to protect the Federation. You know,
but his went ship Federation and Seven's goes Federation ship.
No, Sevens is like my buddies.
But the buddies were on the mission to save the
The
Federation.
Federation, yeah.
No,
I think if they were like
the buddies were there to help their other buddy, and
and that's why she's like, yeah, take a shuttle.
But it's the same thing though, right? Like, it's all this like insider handshakey kind of like, like, oh, you're part of the team, like basically she went from the end of season 2 to captain in what, like 2 years from not even from academy,
like 3 to 4 years
from season 2 to season 3. Okay, so 3 years to have his ship. Like Data was there for 7
but she was also on Voyager through the Delta Quadrant before that. You think none of that time spent as being like essentially an ensign matters at all?
My response is like, no, I do think it matters, but like, there are people who, for all of it, have waited.
Of course she had nepotism push her through the door.
And you're okay with that?
No, wait. I don't think it's nepotism. First of all, I'm a big proponent of mentorship and apprenticeship, right? Yeah. And as far as I'm concerned, 7 of 9 was mentored and apprenticed by one of the best who ever done it. Like, period, point blank. She learned from Janeway. Like,
she's also saved the Federation multiple times
on Voyager. Like, she has seen things that no other captain or no other current captain has seen. Like, she's part of this elite special kind of fraternity of people who've been on the edge, and it has come back from it. So I have no qualms whatsoever about her being ready to be a captain. Like, I'm fully like, to me, it's late, right? As far as I'm concerned. Now, I thought you were going somewhere else, Paul. Here's where my issue. Rafi as first officer, I'm struggling with a little bit. And I had come to terms earlier with the fact that, like, oh, their relationship, that makes me feel, I'm not sure how I feel about that. And then I was fine. And then you said something, Paul, a minute ago that then turned that upside down. For everything that Shaw said about 7, she's brave. She's, she can be loyal a little bit. She's loyal, but she can be reckless, like all that. I don't have a problem with that in Captain, assuming there's balance. And I think that with Rafi, I'm struggling to find that counterbalance. Like when you had Kirk and you had Spock, right? When you had Picard, you had Riker. You had this balance.
I feel like Picard Riker, this is actually probably the most similar to a Picard Riker situation.
Well, no, I think to me, Riker's the hammer and Picard is the British stage actor who's going to be thoughtful. Like it's a little bit different.
Picard. I'm sorry, Clyde.
And you had Data, who was completely logical. It's just I'm looking for. I was expecting, like, right now you got a thief, a pirate, and a spy. Like that whole center section, it's define. Be really
fun to watch.
It will be, but that defines reckless, right? Like who on that bridge, and then you got LaForge, you got Crash LaForge up front. Like they got nobody who is
no
calm and collected.
That's what it is. Like, I'm just saying, like I think like
I feel 7 is our adult now.
Like I
don't
know.
think that like the death of Shaw and seeing like all of that occur doesn't put some sort of a gut check in for her. I mean, her speech to that I wanted to talk about her kind of moment on the bridge of the Titan when she gives the, like, you're not here to, I'm not trying to send you to your deaths. We're here to try to literally save humanity. And like, I think she does have it in her. I think she's rebelled because, do you know what I mean? Like, because she essentially did not get to be a teenager and it took her a while to become within her humanness. I feel like a lot of her rebelliousness is probably not as rebellious as we think it is. Like, what if we actually seen her be that rebellious besides being a Ferris Ranger? And even then it was like, I'm on the side of justice and like doing these things, right?
I will say this, like, for almost every captain that I've seen that I respect, like there is a moment in their captaincy where they have to go against their gut and go with principle. Picard does this all the time, like where he goes like, I have to prime directive over, like, over what I feel is personally feel is right. Kirk does this with City on the Edge of Tomorrow, where he lets Joan Collins die because he loves her, but if he doesn't do this, then Cisco says to he tricks the Romulans into joining the Dominion War. Like, everyone puts their overall goal, the Federation, the bigger picture over their gut. And I've not seen Seven do that in any of the episodes from Voyager here.
I have no doubt that she can.
I don't know that. She here are the people coming up on the bridge. She saves Shaw rather than do what he says, which is to blow the turbo lift, and he gets because of her, the Vulcan science officer dies because of her. I love Seven.
I'm not blaming Seven for that.
Me either. That's a Vadic choice. No, I'm good.
But Vadic wouldn't be on the bridge if not for Seven.
That's still so whose life is worth more? Like
Shaw said, blow it. It's his ship. He says do it, and she couldn't do it because it goes against her gut.
Right.
I'm just saying that's I think that's great, and I think a first officer can have that. But I think what makes a captain is a person who goes like, oh, I have to trade lives because the bigger picture is more important. My hot take.
I mean, Stress VK also brings up Kirk would have saved Spock in that situation, vice versa. I think
How many times did Burnham try and save Book? Right?
She's a bad captain. Oh, hot take.
No, listen. Thank you.
Time out. Paul's in time out.
Exactly where he deserves.
Here's my thing: is all of the male captains have done all of these same things, and I feel like Burnham and Seven and all of these women, and it's not. This isn't on you, Paul, but
done it too.
And Janeway's done it. Yeah, I'm saying all of these captains have all of the same qualities. That's why they make them captains and characters in this show.
Well, I'm saying that Seven doesn't have this. Seven doesn't have the other quality that I'm looking for, which
We've literally only seen her be a captain for less than 20 seconds.
what I'm saying is you need to see that before you promote someone to captain. That ability.
I disagree.
I'm with Myrriah on this.
We didn't get to see almost all of the captains that we're talking about when they were first promoted.
Right. Well, and I got to clear something up because I'm about to get killed in the chat, and that is, let me be clear. I am for Seven as captain, and I am for Rafi being senior staff. Right. My question is whether or not I think Rafi should be the first officer on the Enterprise G, and I'm aware that she was Picard's XO. I felt like this was an opportunity to bring in somebody new, somebody cast this one. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. And here's the other thing is this is the end scene, the setup for them to get a spinoff, right? This isn't going to be our full cast for what this actual bridge looks like. So we're going to get someone who is going to be this balanced out, the science officer, a comms with a calm head. You know what I mean? We have yet to really learn anything about the rest of this bridge crew. I do think it's funny that he becomes special counselor to the captain.
I was going to ask you what you thought about that.
I was like, weren't you a doctor? Why aren't you in the medical office? That was my big question. And I'm so frustrated we didn't get to hear her catchphrases. So Marge brings up, what do you think Seven's catchphrase is? I don't know. And I don't want to predict anything because I want it to surprise and delight me. But I did go through and find all of the ones that other captains have used. And so we have Kirk, who uses execute or take us out in generations. Jellicoe has get it done. Lorca had go. Pike has a punch it or hit it. Technically in the TOS pilot, Pike says engage. So that's the first mention of engage. Freeman is warp time or warp me. Janeway, we have do it. She also uses engage. Burnham is let's fly. Picard, we have obviously make it so and engage. I was trying to see if I could find one where Shaw says something. I couldn't find.
Get us out of here.
Get us out of here.
But he's never captain when the ship is moving.
Yeah, he's been taken out of just been moving, so not sure what that might be, but
Look forward to get us out of here is his catchphrase.
it'll be interesting to hear what that looks like. What else was I going to say? But yeah, I'm excited, and I hope they do get a fun. I would love to see this Captain Seven spinoff. I think it would be really fun. I hope they get something. And if it does happen, I mean, we're not going to watch any of it for at least another year and a half, probably. So.
Oh no, we go longer than that. Like
we got a long time to play. What's Seven's catchphrase? Right. I wanted to. So this series sort of ends with Picard doing a quote from Julius Caesar. We love a Picard Shakespeare moment. Also, apparently, that poker scene at the very end, they just let them all play poker for 45 minutes and shot it, and that's how they got all of that
for the credits.
For the credits as their characters. Which I thought was funny because at one point you can hear someone say like, "Oh, let's play Ryza 7 or something like that," and
Ryza
Troy's
6,
just like, "Yeah, whatever that is." And I was like, I don't know if that was actually an in-character Troy moment or if that was just Marina sort of being like, "Whatever that is," which I enjoyed.
I thought that was one of the best ways to end this. I say this series, but I say TNG. To see Picard sit down and play poker with his senior staff. Like, again, it's one of those things where I'm like, man, if you've never seen TNG, do you get the significance of this moment or not? But for me, it was like this, and not only play with them, but beat them. Like that was like, oh, this is why you don't play, because you just be taking their money all the time. Like that was kind of cool, even though there's no money. But yeah.
What else? We didn't get Laris. We didn't get a Guinan moment. And then we have our post-credit scene where Jack is unpacking his belongings in his bunk. And for an ensign, he seems to have maybe his own room, or is only sharing a room with one other person, not a lower decks, not a lower decks situation. And space Nepo baby, and Q shows up.
Well, before we go that, like, what's up with Jack always having a gun nearby?
He did have a personal phaser.
He's a pirate. That is how pirates like pirates.
I don't know, but is it Federation policy where like the special counselor gets a hand phaser?
Maybe it's because of the changelings. Perhaps there's like some sort of situation in place because of changelings. I could see that, or it's just Jack has a phaser in his bag.
Yeah, no, it's just weird. Like he's raised. Anyway,
I'll tell you what I was hoping. I'll tell you what I was hoping to see in that scene, because we got to see the little picture with Jack where he's got an old picture of Beverly and Picard,
which is very obviously just them at a premiere event.
Yeah. What I wanted to see was like Picard, Laris, and Jack, as a picture of like Jack and his stepmom. Like he wants family,
like family pictures going up as like a small moment. I was really hoping he was going to turn around and it was going to be Peanut Hamper.
Boom! We did it, Mariah. High five!
It took me an hour and I found it.
60 minutes in and right in the jaw.
That's right. Mama said knock you out.
Got me.
I can't go without talking about our beloved Peanut Hamper.
Oh, you got me. That was good. That was going.
But yeah, Q is interesting to bring back. I was like, there could have been so many things for that little, and I so here's the thing. I don't mind it being a Q. I just wish it was like a young Q, like a new Q, the new generation Q. Where he like transforms into who this new Q is going to be, Yeah,
if you're going to bring back someone from TNG, I kind of don't want it to be cute. And that's not a shot at John Delancey. I love John Delancey. I just, like, to your point, if you're going to do a Q, can we get a new Q? Right. Like a Star Trek Legacy Q? Or if you, that was like, really? We're doing this again?
For me, my point was like, my dad said you died. And Q goes, Huh. Well, as opposed to, wait, I die?
That would have been funny.
What? So, but yeah, like, I think it's fine. Like, I think.
Well, to that point, Myrriah, you said this earlier. This season almost just gives the middle finger to the last season.
Mm-hmm.
Like nothing about last season
matters.
Almost makes sense in the context of this season, because, and we haven't talked about this at all, but like we have a whole last few episodes, and this episode is significantly featured on the Borg, and we pretend like the new Borg Queen Jurati, just like that never happened.
Yeah, there's just like those like kind of lines that get tossed out about like, oh, it's the original timeline Borg, like they're kind of that other Borg are not representative of all the Borg. Yeah.
No, wait. It would be interesting, like it had Picard just go, oh, you know what? We should go ask Jurati for help.
Right. Or
because the other thing is, so this means, so in the grander scheme of the timelines, is like we have seen Borg kids in academy classes on lower decks, right? And so would then
did I miss that? Oh wow,
there's Borg kids in the academy. And so to me that then means the Jurati Borg essentially do eventually join the Federation, and that's what that means.
Or maybe those are Borg that have been liberated, because
XBs or whatever.
Yeah.
Potentially, but they do look like, I mean, they've got like all the hardware.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, Borgatti, I like that.
Borgatti. Yes. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, the Borg in lower decks could be Borgatti Borg.
I mean, again, like I feel like there's so much I would have loved to see. You know who would have been an absolutely great first officer?
Peanut Hamper.
Rios
is just as kind of crazy as the rest of this crew.
Yeah, but Rios has a ton of captain experience.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No.
Yeah, I mean, he was the captain of
La Serena.
Well, no, of Stargazer.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Stargazer, yeah. Yeah, I loved Rios as a character. The fact that it feels like they just
it's also funny in a series about like being parents, like we never told Data that Picard met like Data's kids. Like
that's a whole thing. Like everybody's talking about, oh, Data needs a kitten. Data has actually a whole litter of offspring off on a planet somewhere that he can get a ton of community. He's got a whole family tree.
But Data knows about them because like he Sung's memory files are
right.
So
again, all this to say, it feels like season 2 just never happened. Like we're just gonna pretend like it never happened.
Yeah, like it's. I'm fine with that.
I would be interested. I might just watch season 1 and then watch season 2, and like because it's like we really just need Picard and Seven and Rafi to like team up, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's really
and all the one thing that you need to know is about his synthetic body.
Yeah, and that's season 1.
Is that season 1? Okay, yeah. And then yeah, wow, you could really skip from season 1 to season 3.
I would be interested anyway. There's things I liked about seasons 1 and 2. That's why I'm just like, oh, it feels like we've abandoned a lot of things, but this season
Rios had a lovely meet cute. Again, I'm a rom-com guy. That worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I was hoping that rather than he stays, she comes. But
yeah, it is what it is. Yeah, I mean that was the series, guys.
Yeah, well done.
I think, from here, what we've done in the past for other kind of series wrap-ups is, like a week or two later, we sort of come together and talk about like the whole kit and caboodle, if you will. Mm-hmm. Although this is our first of New Trek full series finale we've had. So it might be worth us taking some time to rewatch the entire series and maybe do a deep dive on the opinion of all of it as a whole.
Yeah, I think I love like space tentacles.
I'm scared of what I might think.
Going back?
Mhm.
I think because we talked a lot about how seasons 1 and 2, I think, make for better binge watches than week to week.
True.
So I'd be interested to consume it that way and see what that looks like.
I mean, there's so much. You got Murder Nuns.
Yeah,
Myrnah's are great.
Mermans were great.
You got Synthetic Twins.
Um,
Weird
Yeah.
Romulan Borg. Like, there's a lot. I feel
There's
be-
quite a bit. It's going to be, this will be kind of our longest break between new Trek series in a while, but I think we'll come up with some fun things to do in the meantime. I'm trying to reach out to some folks about potentially interviewing some people on the feed, so keep an eye out for that. But anything else to say about this finale, y'all?
No,
I thought it looked beautiful. I thought
Yeah.
all of the space
Enterprise.
battles, the ships all looked great. The space station in front of Earth looks so
Space dock.
good. Space dock looks so good. So good. So I was excited to get to see everything in like bright, shining new CGI and special effects, which I know takes a lot of freaking time. So shouts to everyone who worked on this, and they spent so much time recreating. I was like, oh my gosh, guys, now we're going to get into my production nerd self here. Like the amount of attention to detail to recreate the bridge was beautiful.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No. And the lighting was really nice too. It's the nicest, the prettiest lighting I've seen for
that carpeted bridge.
On that carpeted bridge. That's right.
I thought that looked great. I hope they don't, destroy it like they did the old one. I hope it gets to tour around the country and we get to see it in some way, shape, or form. I mean, everything looked good. The costumes were great. I loved all the costumes this season.
Myrriah, one last thing we haven't actually mentioned, the naming, right? So I, like a lot of people, really thought it was going to be the USS Picard.
Same. I 100%. I was like, oh, it's going to be the Picard.
Really?
I did. I really did.
Because then it would have made all the sense. This whole series is called Picard, and they're almost always about the ship. And then it would have been the Picard.
And it would have been like, that would have fit. But how do you feel about the whole Enterprise G being like the Titan being renamed the Enterprise G?
I don't mind it as long as they're making another Titan. I mean, I thought it was going to be renamed as the Picard, but I don't know if they do that for like living people. Yeah.
And has Picard really earned a name after him?
You're really poking for a fight tonight, Paul. Paul is out for blood.
Phaser set to kill. And the Phaser set to heavy stun.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't mind. I mean, I love the idea of 7 of 9. I love the idea of her being a captain on the Enterprise. That brings me a lot of joy. But I think I would have had more fun with it being the Titan, because the Titan's also a really fun ship, with a legacy of its own.
That's what I want. I mean, I was really hoping that the new series, if we get a new series, would be new, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that was what was super exciting about Discovery, was we got to experience a new ship and a new name and a new crew, and it was like, hey, can we fall in love with this all over again? With little bitty hints of, we got some hints of things here and there, like Spock. I don't know that I needed this to be Enterprise G, right? Like, feels like
I mean, I do love being able to be like, welcome to the G unit, like someone who listened to a lot of.
It could have been, because I think you might be right about the living person bit. Like, you can't name it. So it could be the USS Shaw.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a Shaw reference on at least a shuttle or something in the near future.
And here's the thing: him being the captain, the last captain of the Titan and dying, the USS Shaw would have made sense, right? I'm sure it would have, not been a very exciting ship, and ultimately would have crashed into the side of a planet. But it would have been the name would have made sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we all know what ship is really coming, which is the USS Peanut Hamper. It's gonna be there.
Phaser's set It's a heavy stud.
Yeah. I did see someone say Hugh,
Yes,
which
Hugh.
would be interesting, to see something in his honor, especially with 7 at the helm. That could be cool. But it is interesting. They have also, after this whole situation, we have 2 people who have been assimilated by the Borg on the bridge. And I wonder, that's definitely the first time that's happened, right?
Yeah, no. Usually you only have one captain who's been assimilated by the Borg on the ship.
Well, I mean, the other thing that's interesting about that is ultimately Jack was responsible for a whole gang of people dying.
Yeah,
Just like father, like son.
that's
Right. And so you would think that now this has happened twice. Starfleet, I feel like we're not getting the Starfleet. The Starfleet I'm used to is typically just a little bit rigid, and sometimes
There are consequences to action.
like vengeful. Like,
Yeah.
no, I know this would make a lot of sense for him to be on the Titan, the Enterprise. I get it, but no, we just can't do it. He killed a whole gang of people. We can't go that route.
Like my favorite line, and I think in all of Picard series, like all 3 seasons, was in season 1, where this admiral goes to Picard, "This is not your house anymore." And I was like, that's hot. That's and so yeah, like I'm with Clyde there. Like, like for all of it, Jack decided to go to the Borg, and because he decided to go to the Borg, like all the adults died on those ships in the fleet. No one over 25 lived.
Well, not all, but yes, a lot.
But effectively, all those people died, and so not
He
cool.
gave the command. Like, he gave the command.
Yeah.
Not cool. And unlike
Again, father like son.
but unlike Jean-Luc, Jack went there. He like Jean-Luc was at least kidnapped.
And here's the thing: unlike Jean-Luc had no idea what was going to happen. We know what we know what was going to happen. Like, everybody got to figure.
Well, Jack went in being like, "I'm going to take down the Queen," and then the Queen is like, "Here's my special spell of inclusivity for you."
my response is like, like, who the hell are you that you think you can beat the Queen of the Borg?
You know what? I'm gonna get.
I mean,
a young John Picard.
A young John Picard. 100%.
And then a year later, you're a special counselor to the captain.
Again, a young Jean-Luc Picard. Yeah, I mean, at least it's like they admit that the nepo babiness of it all is real.
Like they go, like, if we're gonna have a problem with, let's just hang a lantern on it and just be okay with it. Like, it's
what I was expecting, I was definitely expecting him to go into Starfleet Academy.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But I think I was expecting more of the Crusher route, right? Like
medical.
Well, no, like, work yourself up. Like, you're an ensign, you're not senior staff. You don't get to sit in that room.
Yeah. I mean, he is an ensign, so.
Yeah, but he's sitting in the big comfy chair. The chair that Worf fell asleep in is so comfortable. Like, like he should be at the front in that more uncomfortable, no back support, bench.
We'll see how it shakes out. Like, if they let him stay there,
I don't know. Like, there have been ensigns in the senior staff before. Ensign Harry Kim, for example.
Mm-hmm.
That said,
who's still an ensign.
Yeah, who's still an ensign, right? But half the crew has to die, and they're in the middle of nowhere. So that's understandable. Like, here's to make the argument, though, half of Starfleet could be dead. So
I mean, it is on the after the Dominion War, after all of this, it's like, I'm sure it also has something to do with the fact that there's just not a lot of staff left, right?
Yeah, and they
and
probably
he is someone
downsized.
with a certain amount of real life experience as well.
Sure. Like, I can see why you fast track if you decide to kill all your senior officers on all your armada.
Yeah, I know. Nicole just also brought up that we got the announcement this week for the Section 31 movie, which we don't know anything about it beyond that it is a movie and it's starring Michelle Yeoh, and that's all I really need to know.
Oh wow! So it's happening.
Oh yeah, they officially announced it. Yeah.
Oh, because I last time I was told it was dead, but like
No,
this, yeah,
it's
okay.
happening.
Oh, cool, good. You know,
It is happening. Official announcement went out. I'm very excited. And we'll have to kind of talk about this another time, I'm sure. But I was like, oh, this also probably, I tweeted that this would also probably mean the return of Ash Tyler. And let me tell y'all,
Clyde loves Ash Tyler.
Well, the other thing is Trek Twitter is either in the camp. Clyde takes himself out. Ash Tyler, everyone is either like
pro or against.
So thirsty for Ash Tyler, or they absolutely hate him. There's no in between.
Yes, I'm on that side.
But yeah, it'll be a Paramount Plus movie. They might have like a street, like maybe a special screening or something, is what I'm thinking. But yeah, and then we have the Academy series that's coming. So we got a lot of live action Trek coming our way, y'all.
Sure.
Part of me wanted to just ask. I was gonna say, I'm not saying this, so I don't need a response.
But you will get one. You will get one.
I was thinking, man, is he that handsome? And I was like, I don't need to ask that question because the amount of yeses that will come flying at me is unnecessary.
Clyde, if you want, you should I have never had anything go as like insane on Twitter before as that innate silly tweet about like, oh, you know who this also probably means is coming back. And I just put up a picture of Ash Tyler and it's like over 300 people liked, retweet. Like it's like the most engagement I've ever had on my Twitter was people being thirsty for Ash Tyler.
Wow. Yeah.
Like very deranged tweets about Ash Tyler.
With my luck, what they're going to do is they're going to cast that actor for Star Trek Legacy, and it's going to be like his great grandson or something, but they look so much alike. And I'm just going to be like, why? Why would you do this?
What your luck is?
I like that actor. Shazad is great.
Your luck would be, Clyde, is if they recast him in the remake of This Is Us.
I'm tapping out at that point.
He's also very funny. If y'all have ever watched Toast of London, that actor is super funny. Anyway, that has been a lot of Trek news. I think we'll have to come back soon and we can talk more
what's
about
this? Ash is greater than Shaw. Boo. Boo.
Yes, I feel like we are at time, y'all. This has been a super fun ride. We will be back talking more Trek in your ears and on your screens very soon. We will update y'all. We might take a week off to process everything and take some time for rewatching, but we appreciate you all so much for tuning in and for listening. We will be back. Keep an eye on our socials. You can find us at Star Trek Pod on Twitter. You can visit StarTrekPod.co for our Patreon and links to find us. Please rate and review us on Apple if you have the time. We appreciate that. Thank you all so much. Live long and prosper, y'all.
Live long and prosper, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you, Karen.